Praised be Jesus and Mary.
Now and forever.
We commemorate today the Martyrs of North America, 8 French Jesuit priests who were martyred for the faith in the United States and in Canada between 1642 and 1649. Although humanly speaking, it didn't seem as if they achieved much, because at the end of their preaching, the faith had not spread much more than, had not spread much. Nevertheless, they sowed the seed of the gospel in America, which later on was watered by others. God gave the increase and took root and flourished later on. The sowing of the seed of the gospel in the United States and Canada was so important that they gave their lives for it, bringing the good news of Christ, building a society based on love of God and neighbor, and making salvation possible and as easy as possible for the natives of this land. Now, we could ask ourselves the question, well, did they really do the right thing in laying down their lives for the gospel? Could the Native Americans could they have saved their souls even without hearing the gospel? Could they have nevertheless saved their soul even in their ignorance of the gospel, of the church, of the sacraments, and of the rest of Catholic teaching? Well, the answer is yes, in theory. Yes, in theory, even if somebody through no fault of his own lacks knowledge of all these things, he can save his soul, but in practice with great difficulty and nearly insurmountable difficulty. Ignorance never makes it easier to be saved. It only makes it harder, much harder, and sometimes nearly impossible. The ignorance of the gospel, the good news, the ignorance of the revealed law of God, which takes away all doubt, the ignorance of the aid of the sacraments, the ignorance of the teaching of the church, the ignorance of the communion of saints, all these things don't make it easier, they make it much more difficult to be saved. Christianity makes it easier to be saved. It gives us the knowledge of the dignity of being children of God, makes us aware of that, of having a Father in heaven. It makes us not only aware of the dignity of being children of God, it empowers us. By the grace of the sacraments specifically, it empowers us to live according to that dignity, very often in resistance to the world around us. And since the gospel speaks of ignorance as well, I'll just point that out. It speaks of a very particular type of ignorance. The last few verses of the gospel speak of the servants who did not fulfill their master's will. There's the servant who was aware of it, there's the servant who was not aware of it. Both are deserving of reproach for their actions. One is more responsible, the other less responsible. But connecting this with what I said earlier, ignorance is not something desirable. It never makes it easier for us, again, to enter the kingdom of heaven or to become saints. Again, ignorance is not desirable, especially when it's a willed type of ignorance, which maybe could be a temptation for us Christians. A willed ignorance in the sense that we suspect that we should know something, we know that we could know something, but we're afraid to find out what that something is, because it might mean for us an inconvenience. I might be more bothered in conscience about the way I live if I find out that it's wrong, and then I might be bothered out of my comfort zone to actually change the way I live. That type of ignorance, which is called willed ignorance, intentional ignorance, actually increases our responsibility before God. When God gives us the grace to realize something might be wrong here, I should find out what's right and what's wrong, but we willfully, intentionally choose to remain in that ignorance, we only have all the more a greater responsibility before God. Because our dignity as children of God demands this, that we seek to know, again, how He wants us to live and use the aids that He has given us to live in that way. So on this commemoration of the North American Martyrs, I just wanted to share these few things with you, important things to keep in mind as Christians. Praised be Jesus and Mary, now and forever.